Hi, this is Ihsahn, and you're listening to the Progcast.
Welcome back to the Progcast. This is the second episode this week already, and it's episode number 74. I'm your host, Dario, as always, and as you already heard, I have Ihsahn calling from Norway. Good to see you over Skype and good to talk to you. How are you, Ihsahn?
I'm good, all things considered. And you?
I'm good, thank you very much. We want to know all about your new EP, Pharos, of course. We're going to talk about this in a second, but we like to start our shows with a little section that we call "What's in Your Walkman." So I want to ask you, what have you been listening to lately? Any bands or specific songs that stood out that you like to come back in the last days or weeks? Anything that stood out?
I'll have to check my phone. I think, on recently played, I've been listening to a lot of Stravinsky.
Oh, wow.
The Spring Offering. Jerry Goldsmith, the Omen soundtracks. That is kind of a, nostalgic thing for me.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of Bernard Herrmann, from Psycho and Taxi Driver. It's a lot of soundtracks. Some Röyksopp, some old Black Sabbath, the Born Again album. There's Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time.
That's a cool eclectic list.
Right.
For my entry for the What's in Your Walkman section for this episode, for you as an explanation, we do Spotify playlists that accompany the podcast, the Progcast episodes, and in addition to the new singles and of course like a best of the artist I'm talking to, I will add some of the recommendations from you that you just gave us, and also I'm
okay. That might not be totally the cup of tea of your listeners, but maybe
it is the most proggy thing to not stick to prog, I would say. So I like to include stuff that is not generally considered as prog metal or whatever into this playlist. I think it's refreshing.
Yeah, no, it's I guess it is a professional thing as well. You work with some musical textures all the time. It's very refreshing to. I often go elsewhere for inspiration, which I think is natural. And I guess I'm so old now that I really just differentiate between. I love great music, not a big fan of bad music, and it's so subjective, So, but then again, that's the great part of of art in general. You can't really tell someone, even though you don't agree with their taste, you can't say they're not feeling what they're feeling.
Yeah, true. My entries for this episode's What's in Your Walkman list would be I thought I would stay in Norway. Last week we had a new single from Enslaved called Urjotun. I hope I pronounced it somewhat correctly.
It sounds more like it should be Urjotun.
Urjotun.
Yes. I wouldn't. I haven't heard that yet, so I might be wrong.
Urjotun from the new album Utgard that's gonna be out on October 2nd, and it's the third single of that album, and it took me a bit by surprise because it was like there was a 2-minute intro that like was kind of psychedelic and didn't change that much, and it felt really long. And then suddenly there was a big change, and it felt really proggy, and it was really interesting. And I'm really looking forward to listening to it more, and also, of course, the whole album. That's
me
going to be
too.
out in October. And the other Norwegian band I want to give a shout out to is a prog rock band called Fatal Fusion, and they put out a new album that's called Dissonant Minds back in July, and I'm also gonna add a song of that album. Yeah, that was
Nice.
the What's in Your Walkman section. Now we want to talk about your music, of course. And Pharos is out actually today when the episode drops. We're gonna put out the episode on Friday, September 11th. And it's gonna be the second EP that you're releasing this year. First one was Telemark back in February. And they have quite a different feel that's quite obvious from the beginning that they're kind of exploring different musical ideas and worlds. So I'm really curious how you came up with this concept of doing two different EPs.
Well, it is again, I had these conversations with my wife. She's kind of my secret sparring partner for all things creative, as with so many other things. And she's been challenging me for a while, for many years really, to kind of do a deep dive and do something very purely black metal oriented again. As that's as kind of playing on my strong points, if you will. And so I was open to that, but I was not open to do that as a full album. I would find that too limiting, to have. Generally, I just all my kind of conceptual ideas are really for my own entertainment and to put myself in situations where I'm as excited and enthusiastic when I first started. That's kind of my my main focus, to find conceptual ideas like that. And but I was open for the idea of doing it in like a shorter format, but then also to do like the mirror image, of that. So basically, I think I started out just with I write up all my albums or projects. I have this one book where I just write up all my ideas before starting writing any music. And this time I just split the page in two, and for some kind of sonic texture that I would put as a note on one side, I would do the opposite on the other. So conceptually, there's like with Telemark, everything is of course within my roots, musical roots, where I came from, also geographical roots, cultural roots. I'm singing, so it's all about what's close to heart. And with Pharos, it's and even the instrumentation, it's a rock band in the brass section. That's it. And but with Pharos, it's of course me exploring much more of, for me, more unfamiliar sounds. And conceptually, I think the titles, even the cover songs, kind of indicate travel. With roads, Manhattan skyline. It's stuff that is far away, so the kind of perspective is also very different. So it was very interesting to single out. I mean, there's been elements of both EPs throughout my catalog, I think, but by kind of distilling out these elements, I guess I could go further in either direction. And so I guess clean the slate a bit before chapter 8. As I have quite consistently been producing one full-length album approximately every second year since I was 16. So it was kind of nice to do something else for a change.
Wow, that's indeed impressive there. And I would have I would need to agree absolutely with you that these elements would be that you kind of separated for these two EPs were always like living side by side and simultaneously throughout your solo catalog. Um, so yeah, any Ihsahn fan saying why does he why is he making pop music now when he listens to Pharos? I would say, wait, this he's been doing stuff like this on his solo albums for quite a while now. Uh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it wouldn't be, for those who may have, heard, full albums that I've done, it probably most would pick up that there have been elements of those types of arrangements and those kinds of atmospheres in there. But of course, it's one thing is to have it like as a touch, within a song, whereas to have full songs, it's an entirely different thing. But as again, referring to what I was said earlier, I mean, I had this huge privilege of being able to do this for a living since I was 16, and I think I owe it to myself and to those who have followed along and kind of kept me going eh, to just do my best and the excitement of pushing the envelope I can do musically. So and to be honest, I don't really consider how things will be perceived. If I've learned anything from having been in this industry for such a long time, to be in sync with what people who listen to your music like and what you yourself are focusing on, it's very hard. I've never experienced to be in sync with that, because by the time something comes out, my head is already somewhere else.
Yeah. On Pharos, of course, with this more melodic approach, you also we also hear a lot of you, a lot more of you singing clean vocals, and especially
Mhm.
I found the your performance on the Portishead cover Roads quite touching and beautiful. And
Oh, thank you.
I think it was last week also that the Guardian was the website or the newspaper The Guardian was putting out an article about your new EP and Enslaved's new album, and also Ulver's new album, and
Hmm.
kind of did a little write up on where these three Norwegian bands coming from this heritage or this musical, having this musical history in the 90s,
Hmm.
where you all ended up, or not ended up, but where you progressed to, where you were going to, and where you are now. And there's this quote um from you actually, that where you said black metal has the same potential for aggression as death metal, but it also lends itself to desperation and fragility, and there's more existential depth. And I think maybe you went all in with the fragility in these calmer sounds, especially on on that Portishead cover. I had the feeling to like you really went all in and
Yeah, but
with the on the fragile side.
absolutely. But this is my experience from that is from, say, like from early Bathory. If you're familiar with the catalog of Bathory, and you would with this kind of black metal style voice, but in such a way that sometimes it would break up into his regular voice. It wouldn't be always persistent, and but usually at points in the lyrics that are kind of very touching and personal. And even though from that perspective, but it is kind of a channeling. Like when he on For All Those Who Died, he's saying, knowing death alone could cleanse them. And it there's an emotion to it. There's certainly a personality to the sound that in that breaking point, and in a different way. That's one of my fascinations with Portishead in general, but also that song in particular, where Beth Gibbons, she's kind of singing at that breaking point in her voice. It's so quiet. It's kind of that breaking point between chest voice and head voice. It's a very, like, I kind of transpose the key to my voice where I register, to that breaking point, because there's the juxtaposition of the almost distorted sounds, and the quietness and kind of gentle way of performing the instruments and the vocals. There's such an extreme tension in that. So that was something that I really wanted to explore.
Very, very interesting insights here. Ihsahn is your solo project, of course, and but you also had other people playing with you on your albums and your releases. Apart from the one that stands out is obviously Einar Solberg from Leprous singing on the Manhattan Skyline cover. Was there anybody else involved in the making of Pharos, as far as musical personnel go?
No, it's of course it's my wife Heidi, who's been producing all the vocals. Because she knows my voice so well. She knows when to push for more and when I reach my limit. In a sense, she has been very kind of influential on that part, as so many other things in my work. But of course, there's also one of my two live drummers. This time it was Tobias Solbakk.
Yes,
who's been my live drummer for quite a few years, but he's never recorded with me before. So I've recorded with Tobias from previous, and he's been recorded in been drummer for my album since my fourth solo album, I think. But given these two EPs, I think, and since they both have been sharing live duties with me kind of equally over the last few years, it was very interesting to have him be part of that interpretation. So, but beyond that, I think there's really no one else.
Yeah, that's.
And of course, Jens Bogren, who mixed it. There's other, of course, but as for artistic input, that's about it. Yes.
Wow. And the choirs in the title track. Is that you and Heidi singing and layering?
Yeah, and I think also the kids. That's also in there.
Your kids, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
They both take singing lessons and do music. They're environmentally damaged like that.
with parents like that, no wonder.
And of course, Uncle Einar. I mean, it's easy when he's my youngest brother-in-law. So
yeah.
It's so they kind of grow up, and my mother-in-law is also a classical vocal teacher. So they grew up thinking that this is what people do. Like make songs and make records and do live shows.
Yeah, about live shows. When I finally got to know your musical world and check you out, it was around the time of Arctis, or after Arctis was released, and Arctis came out in 2016, and that was exactly the year where my personal taste or horizon widened and broadened so much in terms of what I could take and actually enjoy in extremer subgenres of prog metal. That was it
Mhm.
came around quite the perfect timing for me, and I also had the opportunity to see you headlining the Complexity Fest in Holland then,
Oh yeah.
and I actually didn't check now on Setlist FM or anything, but from what I remember, that you mostly do more the festivals and as opposed to longer tours. I mean, now everything's different with the worldwide corona crisis, obviously. But is this does my memory serve me right that you're not the uh, someone who is going on longer tours and rather
Oh yeah,
picks
absolutely.
the special festivals and stuff.
Yeah, at the end of 2008, end of 2018, I did my first bus European tour since 1999.
Yes, I remember.
So
I
so
remember now.
yeah, so beyond that, I've only been doing festivals really, and shorter trips, like a small tour to Australia or Japan or something like that. And it's a matter of preference really. I was never big on that whole tour style, and I was always very much a studio rat in that respect. But I've come to, I've had some amazing musicians with me, and really kind of reacquired the taste for performing live. And
Were you quoting?
also,
Were you quoting an album title by your little brother-in-law there? No, no, not a song
what was
title.
that?
Acquired taste.
Acquired taste. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, but I mean, Lepros started out, as for the first years, they were my backing band for playing live. So we've been kind of all over the world together, and like the first time I went to Japan, I mean, they got you know. So, but since then, of course, they have grown to be like a massive force in their own right,
Yeah.
and I'm very happy for them to be so. And I was actually just here
Oh.
because we've been working together here at their cabin. So, and yeah, he's been playing me some new stuff.
Oh, yo, you
I got the
lucky,
inside on that.
lucky you. Um, about live shows, what I mean, the show was fantastic, and you even managed to not butcher celestial violence on your own. Back then,
Oh,
when I
thank.
saw you in at the Complexity Fest, but there was one thing I was a little bit missing, and that was a bass player.
Oh yeah, but for Arctis, and there's no bass on Arctis or Amer. None of those albums have bass on them.
Okay, and
It's I recorded everything with a Moog.
oh, nice.
All the bass parts are performed by a Moog synthesizer.
That's very very interesting. I mean, I've been listening to these albums the last days as well, leading up to this interview, and also, of course, to the release of Pharos. And but I'm gonna listen to them again now and trying to distinguish the Moog parts, especially and
But
so,
it's more of a sub element, because
yeah,
and
yeah, sure,
this was something, because I've also written, for 7 string, but also a lot for 8 string, and there's really
yeah,
no purpose of putting octave parts, beyond below 8 string guitar sharp. It's just that's just not practical for bass guitar. So as soon on my third solo album, where I started writing for 8 string guitars as well, I had to kind of re-evaluate, the bass player part in a way. You can't really just do octaves anymore. You just have to rethink that, and sometimes you can actually interchange the guitar parts and the bass part, like switching the register. But for all practical purposes, and since again I have been playing a lot of music with a traditional setup, it was interesting to kind of just give that low end a different flavor for a while.
That's very cool.
And
it definitely has a different feel to what was on your earlier solo albums, with Lars Norberg playing some beautiful bass lines here and there, like this had the total the very different feel. And I think it's quite interesting to listen through the discography and see the progressions from album to album, and that especially between Das Seelenbrechen and Arktis, I thought there was a huge difference to hear there.
Oh yes.
Because I thought as a German I also would love to would love to know how did you come up with this title, this German album title? Where did that derive from?
It's taken from a Nietzsche aphorism.
Okay.
Because I'm a huge Nietzsche fan, and I was reading up on some of his aphorisms over again, and I think Das Seelenbrechen, that album, was my approach of throwing everything I knew out the window and just go all in for improvisational stuff and experimental stuff. Like in how I imagined like Diamanda Galas or later Scott Walker would approach music, in opposition to that very planned, very written out, parts of doing extreme metal, which is doesn't really lend attention. But with the state of mind that trying to reflect on what is my musical goal, and I come to realize that my every album and every song is got like another attempt of reaching this kind of far off point of reference that is like perfection, and it's not a sad feeling, it's not a good feeling, it's just like where you lose yourself in music or a piece of art. And I didn't have a name for it, but as soon as I read that Nietzsche aphorism and saw the wording Das Seelenbrechen, where the soul breaks, was the closest I've come to a description of that feeling, wow. And then it made sense to and it's also taken from a very beautiful aphorism.
Yeah.
So
from that album from Arktis on, then you went back to more structured songs now, and of course on the new EP Pharos, that's taken to a new extreme in the less extreme metal sense. And I urge you all to check it out there. It's a beautiful, brilliant EP. I really, really love it. I can't get enough of it. Actually, it's really beautiful.
Well, thank you.
I thank you for talking to us, for taking the time. We need to wrap this up now. Thanks for calling from your Norwegian cabin. Apologies for the little breakups in the connection to our listeners. Thank you, Ihsahn. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much for the support.
Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and as always, listen to great music. Thank you so much.
The Progcast is a production of Stuis Media and is recorded at the Moonbase Studios in Munich. It is produced by Randy M. Salo, Janine Stengel-Lewis, Blake Lewis, Kai Metzner, and Dario Albrecht. Our theme music is by This Is Not an Elephant.